Why does some of my students go on to generate 20, 30,000 pounds every single month, cash collected in the bank, all transitioning from employment to entrepreneurship within a very short period of time? Why do some of my students go on to achieve those type of results and some don't? Now, I can tell you exactly why. Now, one of the biggest things of what every single budding entrepreneur must have, without a shadow of a doubt, and that is a level of commitment, okay? I'm going to make a couple of notes as I go through, okay? So let's start off with commitment. Okay, right, commitment. Okay? Right. Commitment, okay? Now, why this is so important is because this is not going to work if you've got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And what I mean by that is, I'll try, maybe, hopefully if everything goes according to plan, but, I've got to go on holiday and I've got to go and also do something with my friends. I've got to go out, I've got to go to the club, I've got to go to the pub, I've got to go to the bar, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do everything else, apart from what we really need to be doing to achieve the financial free lifestyle of what it is that we say that we want. Financial and time freedom, okay? Time freedom is absolutely priceless. It really, really, really is. Making money is great, but the time to be able to do whatever it is that you want, when you want, is absolutely priceless. So if we want to go on to achieve that, and if we're not fully committed, and I know that no doubt, lots of us, every single student I ever have coached over the years, of which there have been thousands of people all around the world, every single person has got great intentions. However, not everybody is committed. Those people that are committed, they're prepared to do whatever it takes. Because look, when it comes down to you achieving your success, you do not have to be the smartest person, out there. There are lots of people that, you and I both know of that they're not necessarily the smartest people out there. However, they go on to generate millions of pounds, millions of dollars, okay? Why? A lot of the reason why is because of their level of commitment. They are not prepared to say no. It's almost like, we're that committed that we are going to bang on the door of success until success opens that door. This is what my students do. Those that go on to achieve, some really impressive numbers, they will stand at the success door and they will bang on the door and they are not going to go away. They're not going to go, oh, you know what? Oh man, banging this door is hard work. So you know what? Let's go home. Yeah, let's go home. Yeah, let's go home. Let's have some food. Let's watch a bit of Netflix. Let's watch some TV. Let's go and do that. Yeah, like the committed ones, they do not do that. They're going to be standing there. They are going to be banging and banging and banging until that door opens. Like I say, you don't have to be the smartest person out there. You don't have to have gone to Harvard University or Cambridge or Oxford. You don't need to, be like that. Sometimes, when you've got a real high level of, academic success, sometimes that doesn't always play well when it comes down to, entrepreneurship. Because yeah, you can learn loads of things from a textbook, but now you've got to get out there and actually sell to somebody. Now you've got to get out there and actually do it. It's like, I didn't learn that at university. So you don't necessarily have to, have all of that behind you. That commitment, the fact that you're there, you're not prepared to, walk away until that door opens, that is the commitment of what it is that I'm talking about. And those of my students that go on to achieve that level of success are some of the most committed people that I've ever met. But the thing is, they have to be. In order to achieve that level of success, you have to be really, really, really devoted, committed. You've got to be. Because remember what it is that we're saying that we want here. We want to have a financially free lifestyle that is not going to just benefit us, it's going to benefit our family and maybe even future generations as well. So we want to get into a level of success that literally only 1% of this entire world has currently got right here, right now. You want to step into that club. You want to step into that. However, people want to do it, but they don't want to show commitment. They don't want to show how actually, this is what it's really going to take to really get there and really stay in the game all the way until they've achieved what it is that they're saying that they want to achieve. Everyone's got good intentions. Over the years, there's been thousands of people. Everyone comes with, a similar mindset in terms of the intention. We all love the idea of it. However, when we actually now have to get out there and actually do some work, and we've got to juggle. We might have to juggle the kids and our day job and our partners and some of our social activities of what we love to do. We've got to juggle a few things. In fact, we may well even find ourselves where we have to put our business a little bit more in terms of priority. We've got to prioritize the business a little bit more than some of these other things. We struggle. We struggle with it. So we might have got good intentions. People might even, sign up and do some of my training. They jump on board. We might have a consultation, and then they go missing. They're with me. They're supposed to be with me for maybe 6 months or a year, and they go missing. They paid their money. It's like, well, where are you going? Like, what's going on? But it's that understanding of when, we've gone through a bit of a consultation. There's work that I've got to be done here. Oh, yeah, I like the idea, Jay. Yeah, I like it. And in a mind somewhere, it's like, yeah. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it, yeah. But let me just do this first. Let me just do that first. And then before you know it, months have gone by. 6 months, 8 months, 12 months have all gone by and nothing has been done. Nothing. And again, over the years, I've witnessed that multiple times. However, when you've got that level of commitment, you're that committed that, look, no matter what, Jay, I am ready. Look, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. Sometimes, we have these reservations about, oh, yeah, but Jay. The thing is, I like the idea, Jay. Yeah, I'll do it, yeah. But I don't want to do any webinars, Jay, right? I don't want to do a webinar, Jay. I don't want to do a video. You see, like what you do. Yeah, I don't want to do these videos. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So it's almost like, well, look, we want the success, but we want it all wrapped up in a bow, delivered in exactly the way that we want it to be delivered, which unfortunately is not realistic. In order for you to get to where it is that you want to be, we might have to upskill. We might have to learn some things. So the more committed you are, the more you're prepared to learn, the more open you are to learning new things. And that is what's really going to be required, because it is what it is. I don't write the rules, yeah? I just play by the rules. So commitment, if you're not committed, really committed, you got to think about what it is that we're saying that we want. Okay, we want to what? Be financially free. You want to what? Not have to worry about any bills, have a nice cars, nice home, nice holidays, have, eat in nice restaurants, be able to provide a great future for our family, all this type of stuff. We want all of that, but we're not going to show the commitment. Again, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, number one, you want to be like some of my students that make 20, 30, even 40, 50,000 pounds in a month. You want to be like some of those students. Well, come on then. The choice is yours. Like I say, you've got it all right here in front of you if you really want to take it. But you've got to show a real strong level of commitment. Okay? So, that is the first thing. Right, next up, we have to show a real high level of consistent. Okay? We've got to be able to show a real strong, high level of consistency, okay? Because everyone, me, some of the most successful entrepreneurs out there that you know of, there's times where we might not want to do it, right? There might be times that I don't want to do a video. There might be times that I don't want to pick up the phone and make sales calls. There might be times that, that I don't want to do webinars. There might be times that I don't want to do it. However, again, the commitment and that level of consistency, making sure that, things get done, whether or not you want to do it or you don't. That's the difference between those that succeed and those that don't. The people that don't succeed, or some of my students, unfortunately, that don't succeed, when they don't want to do something, then they won't. Yeah, they won't do it. Because of how they feel. Okay, and I get it. Look, just trust me. I'm not one of those guys that's going to just say, look, just do it. You're a loser. If you don't do it, you're just a loser. I'm not on that. Because I get it. I've been there. I've been at both ends of the spectrum in terms of, literally being homeless at one point in time, just not doing much at all with my life, and then obviously being able to change my life in a real positive way. So I get it. Yeah, I do. I really genuinely do. But I just got to show you the truth in terms of we've got to step up, our consistency and, do things every single day, towards our success. And the thing is that your success deserves it. It deserves you to be consistent, show it love, because look what it can do for your life. As I mentioned before, it gets you to, it puts you in a position where you don't have to worry about money as such. But don't forget the time side of things is priceless. Having all the time that, you want in terms of what time are you waking up tomorrow? You're waking up whatever time you feel like it. You're not waking up to the tune of somebody else's, request. You have to set an alarm clock because you have to be somewhere based on your, obligation to what you've committed with them over there, like your job or whatever. Like I say, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a job, but no doubt, lots of you that are going to watch this type of content, you want to create a business because you want the time and financial freedom. So, okay, great. The time freedom is everything. So look what, your consistency will allow you to achieve in your life. But if you don't want to be consistent, and this goes for anything, if you're not consistent with going to the gym and eating healthy, then, you're not going to be as fit as what you would like to be. If you're not consistent with, the sport that you play, then you're not going to be really good. If you're not consistent with working on your relationship, for example, then, your relationships are not going to be that great. It is what it is. There's me giving relationship advice. Yeah. But look, it is what it is. It is what it is. So remember, when it comes down to success, look what it's going to do for your life. So ensuring that, we are consistent and we're committed is very, very, very important. Okay, right. Next up. So we're showing now lots and lots of commitment, or we're understanding, and there's levels to this game. Yeah, there's levels to this game. And what I mean by that is that, with what we've just been talking about, some people might be like, well, Jay, I'm consistent. I am being consistent. I did something last month, yeah, at the first of the month, right? And then, on the 25th of the month, I thought, let me give it a go again. And then, and then about, 3 or 4 weeks later, I did something else. So Jay, I am showing consistency, Jay. That is consistent. And it's like, do you want to make the 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds in a month? Is that what you want? Because that level of consistency is not going to cut it. What do successful people do? What level of consistency do they show? That they're, out here every day making it work. So if you want those type of levels, look, if you're happy to make an extra £50 a month, then fine, doing something every so often, all right, fine. But that's not what it is that we're saying. We're saying that we want a whole lot more than that. So your consistency and commitment needs to show that, okay? So next up, we've spoken about commitment, consistency. The next one. Can you read that? Yeah? Persistence, okay? Which is different than being consistent. So being consistent is just making sure that you're doing things consistently. Being persistent is you are not going to quit. No matter what. If you don't know how to do something, learn. If there's a blockage that gets in your way, get around it. If you don't have the time, find the time. If you don't have the money, find the money. Because you're that persistent to succeed that nothing's going to get in your way. When you get told no 100 times, guess what? You're going to keep on going. Because, that next no, may well be a yes. So because you're that persistent, you're going to keep going and going and going, and you are not prepared to stop. You're not even prepared to slow down. Because this journey towards you becoming financially and time free, that journey towards you achieving that, I promise you will be, you will have some challenges, okay? There's going to be a bit of headache within that period of time. Okay, I can promise you this. You know, you might have made, lots of phone calls. Every single person has said no. So how does that now make you feel? With lots of us, well, Jay, I did give it a try. That's what people say to me all the time. It's like, well, I did try it, Jay. I did try it. It's like, what did you try? I did call, I called about 10 people one time, yeah. I called 10 people, yeah. And, no one said that they wanted it. So, I just gave up in the end. It's like that rejection has made us feel so low. It's made us feel that what we're doing doesn't work. So because of that, we then just want to quit. But I'm showing you how the difference between those of my students that go on to achieve the real big numbers, the multiple 5 figures every single month, cash collected, and every single one of them, even though they might get told no over and over and over again, they're going to stand up, they're going to, brush themselves down, and they're going to keep going. Some of which will even get to a point of where, getting told no, all right, great, because every single time we get told no, we're getting closer to a yes. Because a lot of this game is about numbers, law of averages. If you speak to, 100 people, then, X amount of those people will say yes. Depending on how good you are at selling. So if you're not that good at selling, for example, then for every 100 people that you speak to, 2 people buy, yeah, for example. However, if you're better at your craft, then every 100 people that you speak to, 20 people will buy, for example, okay? However, we've got to be persistent, because this whole journey of persistence will help you to identify what really works compared to what doesn't work. Because you're being persistent, you're not prepared to quit, you're not prepared to give up. So because of that, you're now going to learn, along the way, because like I said, it's not going to just be one slide all the way to success, sit on a slide, woohoo, yeah, here we go, baby. At the end of the slide, woohoo, yeah, man, I'm there. Let's change our lives. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. And there are going to be times that entrepreneurship will kick you in the ass, yeah? It's going to kick you. It's going to knock you upside the head, right? It will. When things are not going right, you've just got all of that done, and then all of a sudden that happens, and then the website goes down, or this happens, you lose the contract, or this or that. There's going to be times that it's going to be like, oh man, but that's a part of it. That's a part of the game. And that's what this is. It's a game, and those that learn how to play this game, the best will be the ones that are the most successful out there. Those that quit and they don't really fully understand the game because of how they're conditioned. Again, it's like a mindset, how we, when we're raised, when we go through the whole schooling system and the university system, we're taught that failure is bad. And if you fail your exams, then that then means that you won't then get into the university. If you then fail your degree, that then means you don't get the job. So that then means that failure is bad. So that's what we're conditioned to feel. So that then means that, at any sign of failure, at any sign of, oh, this might not go according to plan, we see that as a real negative. Whereas look, entrepreneurship is not that game. This is why most of the world will have employees in them rather than entrepreneurs, because the game can be too difficult for most people to play, the entrepreneur game that is. However, if you believe that you can do this, well, come on then. Because, I believe that anyone, if you want it enough, if you're prepared to show that level of commitment, because with the commitment, you will learn anything you need because you're committed. You're consistent. So you're going to be consistent. You're going to be, taking action consistently. And then you're persistent. So that then means that, look, you are not going away no matter what. Providing that we can, really play this game at that level, then how can you not succeed? How can you not? If you're persistent, to keep on going, keep on going, keep on learning, keep on upskilling, keep on, finding out the path of what you need to find. A lot of that might, equal in you finding the right people along the way. You probably heard your network is your net worth. We're all influenced by others, so making sure that you're around the right influences, that can really massively help you. But because you're so persistent, it's all gonna, you're gonna find your way. It's all gonna come into place because you're that persistent. So really, really, really important. Okay. Now, the final thing of what we're gonna touch on today, is right. Can you read that? Yeah. Energy. Look, you've got to have the energy for this game, yeah? You've got to have the energy for it. You've got to have the energy, that's what I'm talking about, to keep on going. You've got to have the energy to learn new skills. You've got to have the energy. You've got to have the fire to really want this. This is who we need to be. Like I say, I don't write the rules. I just play by the rules. But this is who we need to be if we want to step into that 1%. Because if it's like, well, I do want success, Jay. Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I know I'm going to have it. Yeah, I'm going to get there, right? But, well, I've got to do some things, at the weekend and stuff. I've got to go to this party and stuff. And, I was just watching this thing the other day on TV, and that took up quite a bit of my time. And, but I'm going to get started, on Monday. I'm going to get started, well. Does that show the energy of what it is that you need to, just really have that fire in your belly to go, 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 go. Let's go. Let's make this happen. Let's do this. That whole lackluster, well, oh, Joe, well. Again, look, if you really want this, then again, it comes down to the person that you are. I'm not saying everyone needs to be jumping up and down and like, yeah, woohoo, woohoo, good job, yeah, all that sort of stuff, right? We don't necessarily have to be doing that, okay? However, you've got to have that real strong energy to keep on going, have the energy that this means a lot to you, have the energy that, look, no matter what it takes, you're going to learn new things, have the energy that, look, if you need to go on a video, if you need to show a bit of energy on the video, if you need to do a webinar, if you need to show a bit of energy on the webinar, then you are prepared to do that. Why? Because that's what it takes, because this is what some people will respond really well to, okay? For example, that slow, lackluster, well, who wants to work with that person? You got to think about it. Remember, people typically will buy from people. So depending on the product or whatever it is that you're working with, people will typically buy from people. Who wants to work with that person that is, that bit more lackluster in their approach to everything? Just a bit slower, everything's like, are you believable with what it is that you're saying of how you can help people, for example? Or even if you're doing, like an e-commerce type business, again, when, your things are not selling in the way that you want them to be selling, again, having the energy to just keep on going, be that persistent person that you need to be that energy, just be that person that you need to be, do you have that? Because that's what it's going to take, all right? Okay, right, I hope you got some value out of today's video, okay? Look, don't forget everyone, like, comment, and subscribe, okay? I'm growing my channel, so look, please do me a favor, subscribe to my channel. I'll be putting out lots of videos, all of this type of nature. My aim is to help you get there, is to help you get there. So I'm putting out lots of free content, just to help you to really fully understand what is required, okay? Now, for those of you, if you want to have a chat, feel free to, click on the link in the description. You can book a call, you can check out some of our free training and stuff like that. Just, click on the link in the description. You'll see it all there, all right? Until the next video, thank you so much for checking out the video, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.